Okay, so I got the microphone on now. I just put it on my face. I hate it, but it might just be better in the end. I hope my breathing isn't a problem. I hope it doesn't make it worse. Hope it makes it better. But I'm excited about this part because we're going to do. Oh, yeah. Okay, so first things first. Let's kind of get set up for the ink work. We got this one and this one. Those are our two layers. And I'm not going to merge them because you just never know what could be the issue if you merge your layers like that. You might find that you don't like one part and you stuck them together. So some people plot and plan way better than I do. And when they do it that way, I hope this isn't, I hope people can hear me. Some people plan better than I do and they make sure everything is separated and everything is right. Um, I kind of let it happen organically. I feel like if I'm working for a while and all of a sudden, like, and then just what I separate naturally as I go works for me, then I just stick with it that way. I'm going to turn down my audio because, of course, my computer is never loud until it's loud. And then that's a pain in the butt. That might be better. I feel like it's loud. Okay. Okay. So, um, hope you can hear me as always. Don't know if I'm getting that right or not, but we will see. As I was saying, I try and let my how I plot my layers and stuff work organically as in the flow of the process. Let's get rid of these dialogues. What's this one say? Inks gone. Don't need that anymore either. All right, what do we got here? What's this? That's just scrap. Okay. Uh, can drop that into this folder in for any reason I might need it. What's 5? Oh, lunch break time again. Let's just get rid of that. Don't need it. Okay, we are definitely gonna ink though. Um, and what I'm gonna do is this is gonna look a little weird, but yeah, I'm gonna do something a little slightly different. One, I'm gonna ink this at a lower fill, which is kind of like reducing the opacity, but it gives me a sense of the tone. But it doesn't really matter because this is gonna be straight up black. I'm gonna ink this like black ink. All right, so I want 68% is fine. Okay, and then I'll show you the effect that I'll get when I do it that way. So now I'm gonna get one of my two brushes, and I want this brush to be fairly big. And then we're gonna get in close, and we're gonna ink. We're gonna turn some of this stuff solid. Oh, you know what? I gotta purge. Just realized I haven't done that yet. And purging will kind of delete some of that memory. All the times I erased and stuff, it didn't really go away, you know. And so hopefully that'll do it. Oh, might as well do it now too while we're early in this process. Tools, share my stream, and because I do want people to see this. This is going to be what I'm doing for the most part. The video game stuff I'm indifferent about, but this I want to see. Uh huh. Backspace. Sorry, I'm on my tiny keyboard. Okay. Now I think I can actually use the stylus to write or whatever. Okay, it's on Facebook. Yay! It's on Twitter. Yay! Okay, we're done. We're done with that. Back to work. Okay. Now, so we're inking. Now, I'm gonna show you in a second why I did that. That way, I'm gonna actually need a little less size here. I want to get some of those happy accidents that we got going on earlier. Yeah. That's the cool thing too about drawing with a pen on paper. You get a lot of accidental technique stuff that where the way you may hold the pen, the way you might simply draw some of your stuff will end up becoming what I consider a happy accident. It is, that wasn't intentional, but it kind of worked out. It looks kind of cool. And so Photoshop lets you maximize on the happy accidents because sometimes, like, okay, so what would happen is I have a doodle pad, like I'm always drawing in these pads, and when I don't really give a shit, the artwork will look sometimes not terrible, going back all those years. Like sometimes when I didn't really give a shit, I would accidentally draw something that was passable for good. But the truth was, it wasn't on purpose. Not really. There was no intent there. I just stumbled upon something, and I couldn't recreate it. And then what made that even worse was if I decided I want to seriously draw like a comic book or something, like my own comic book, it would be awful because then I'm so worked up on getting it right and doing every line perfect and not wasting the 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 paper or whatnot. Like I would get blue line part from the art store, the big giant boards that real comic book artists draw on, you know, and I would get those things and they're expensive, and then I would be so afraid to use them and mess up on them that I would mess up all of it. Like it would just be ruined. And so that also probably is why it took me so long to really try and do this. And probably, truth be told, why it was not until I got into the digital aspect of art that I really grew a pair in terms of, you know, drawing comics. I mean, we're talking as late as like 2007, 2008. I'm still not comfortable in my own artistic skin to draw comic books. And I'm already writing about Marvel comics and DC comics every day from a fan's perspective. But I don't have the guts to actually draw my own books because I don't think I'm good enough. I'm still not quite sure if I'm actually good enough to do this, but I just feel like if I'm my own boss when it comes down to it, I don't really have to be good enough for anyone else's, needs. I can just be good enough for me. And I've had a few shots, people who've been legitimately interested in doing some work and things didn't work out for whatever reason. But it was always at the end of the day, I didn't think I was that good anyway. So when those opportunities didn't pan out, it was more of a relief because I didn't want to be that shitty artist that guys like me complained about. Even though I tried my absolute best to never talk about the art in the comic book. I felt like it just took a lot of fucking balls to talk shit about how someone else drew as a comic book reviewer. The story mattered to me. And it only mattered to me in terms of what did you set out to do? Did you accomplish that goal? If your book was supposed to be really funny, was it? If your book was supposed to be really like gritty and realistic, was it? Like, I don't, I hated being a reviewer, even of comic books. Maybe especially comic books, but I really hated reviewing music because I don't consider myself musically inclined, and I thought it was a joke that I would talk about an album like I don't know. I'm not a connoisseur of fine music. I mean, my music taste is kind of I don't know. I wouldn't call it shitty, but everyone else would. So I could articulate an idea, and therefore I could fill content. I could write about it, but I'm no music guy. And I wrote as best I can to be aware of that. Sometimes I failed. I oftentimes failed most in movies. Movie reviews were tough because I didn't like to be negative, but sometimes I come across a movie that really I didn't like, and I just felt like even though I can totally have the right to say I didn't like this movie, I don't know if I have the same kind of authority to talk about stuff like that, like say a Gene Siskel or Roger Ebert. And yeah, that matters to me. I think if I don't have the real authority to talk about certain things, then I'm just disrespecting the field. That's why I never really applied for any more review kind of jobs. I just don't want to do it. Anything I write about comic books now is from a historical perspective because I'm a comic book historian. I can tell you all about the history of shit, and I love talking about the Marvel movies in terms of the history. Like when I was in junior high school, Infinity Gauntlet came out, and you, if you're going to see this in 20 years on YouTube, might be aware of what the Infinity Gauntlet is. But for the people who are watching these new Marvel movies, well, that's sort of what the Marvel movies are about. And I was in high school 23, 24 years ago, junior high school 24 years ago. So that's an old story. The Infinity Gauntlet, the story of Thanos and the Infinity Gems, not stones, is actually really fucking old by today's standards. And it was, only about 10 years or so after the Big Un Crisis had come out, which I read in the Inglewood Library for the first time, and probably 91, 5 years after it actually came out. Crisis on Infinite Earths came out for the first time in 85, and I was in kindergarten. So I didn't see it firsthand. I didn't read it when it first came out. But now it's like, it's the driving force behind what I think is awesomeness. But for the MCU movies, the way they put it all together, they don't reach back too far all the time. Like the Iron Man stuff is relatively recent stuff. They don't go back that far to realize Iron Man for the films. They just don't need to. Iron Man got a really cool update in more recent years, and he needed it because, like a lot of characters from uh, the '60s, their origins are topical. Like Tony Stark was wounded in the Vietnam War. It was 1963, 64 when his book came out. That was what was current. So you can't all of a sudden have a book in the 90s where Tony Stark is still a 30 something, but somehow he got injured in Nam. It doesn't make any sense anymore. And I've always been of the mind that I would have preferred that Tony Stark just got older. And if you wanted, he could have been an older Iron Man. I don't like that. He could have been an older Iron Man, or he could have just, you know, retired or whatever you want. But you can just pick a guy and you can parallel Iron Man's origin, or you can do it something totally different. And they give you the blueprint for doing the totally different and still getting Iron Man. His name is James Rhodes. Rhodey was Iron Man before he was War Machine. You know, that's how he was introduced. He was Tony's homeboy who, for a time, while Tony was dealing with some issues, wore the Iron Man suit. And wearing the Iron Man suit proved problematic. I mean, it was kind of a cheap shot because that's how they got Tony back in the suit. See, I love the Iron Man movies. I think Robert Downey Jr. was like the best casting in a way for the initial kickoff of the movie universe. But I didn't like Iron Man as a kid in the comic books. Iron Man didn't make a whole lot of sense for one, and then on top of that, he's lame. Iron Man was lame in the comic books for a long time. He was just in his own book, and if you liked Iron Man, you stayed in your own wing of the Marvel universe. But Iron Man, no one gave a shit what he was doing outside of his own book and outside of the Avengers books. And even in the Avengers books, no one really gave a shit. And why should they? Iron Man sucked. He was a whack character who didn't make any logical sense because you have this super smart billionaire guy who can help the world in all these ways with his inventions in his mind. But what he wants to do instead is put his life in direct danger flying around in this suit. And see, at first, he has the heart issue with the shrapnel in his heart, the whole nine, that old chestnut. And it kind of makes sense because he absolutely has to be Iron Man because the suit is like a walking, like, he's like Darth Vader. The suit's keeping him alive. It's a walking life support system, basically. Now it's much cooler than Darth Vader. It doesn't make him, you know, wheezing all the time. There's no rainbow light right in his chest. But in a nutshell, he was Darth Vader before Darth Vader was Darth Vader. I mean, let's just be honest with it. But once they got him out of that little plot device where he no longer needed the suit to live, you all of a sudden had to justify him being Iron Man, and there was, to my knowledge, to this day, never a good justification to why he would do something so foolish and illogical when he matters so much as a regular fella. Like Bruce Wayne died when his parents died. He never developed a perfect persona as anything other than the asshole we see in the films when he's Bruce Wayne, like the vapid pretty boy. He doesn't really know shit. Like that's kind of Bruce Wayne's kind of take on humanity, on regular folks. He's Batman 24/7. There is no real Bruce Wayne. So it kind of makes sense why he doesn't look in the mirror and go, I would do way more as Bruce Wayne. He was never Bruce Wayne. He hadn't been Bruce Wayne since his parents got shot. And then you can use that psychosis to justify everything that's Batman. And that it works for me. It's not perfect, but it works. But Tony Stark doesn't really have that excuse. Tony Stark should know better. And the moment he doesn't need to be Iron Man, that should be the last time he's Iron Man. And that's cool. He can always be in the book. It's a fucking comic book. Tony Stark can dress however he wants and be however he wants to be, and then fuck it. But to have him still be Iron Man and then spend all this time sort of justifying the decision, I don't know, just kind of makes it all pointless in a way. I mean, over the years, Iron Man's improved tremendously, but in the end of the day, like the movie did more to help Iron Man in the comics than any other comic book movie did for a character. The X-Men never benefited really from X-Men movies, like not the actual books. Maybe a light bump in sales, but ultimately, no one gives a shit. It's still the X. It's still Marvel Comics, and the books and the movies are so far apart in their lore that there's no point in arguing about like the differences and how they are affected by each other because they just Bryan Singer can make a good movie, I guess, but not I guess he can make a good movie, but he screwed the pooch on the source material for the X Men, and he just did. Those they made a decent first movie, and then went super far off the reservation, and then well they spent 10 years screwing the pooch, and then one movie to apologize for it all, and then the Age of Apocalypse one was or the X Men Apocalypse one was actually really good. I enjoyed the dog shit out of that movie, you know, but yeah. Sorry, I'm all over the map to the conversation. I'm kind of into this. I got to take a step back in a second and look and see how I'm doing overall. But this is the inking phase. In case you can't tell, the lines here are more crisp. Now, I'm not painting though, so I don't really care all that much about coverage necessarily. Little flecks of like light poking through will be fine because it'll add to the richness to a sort of texture effect when I start laying down paints. And I'm gonna go ahead and paint this. I can't help myself. I like how this is coming out, so I'm gonna paint it. And I don't usually ink under the pencil, but I'm doing it this time just to see if when I'm ready to do it, does it benefit me to do it. I paint under the pencil, and you'll see why in a second, but I usually don't. Yeah. I don't know if I'm gonna ink all the lines. I don't typically ink all the lines because it's not real ink. I mean, you ink for a lot of reasons. It's embellishment for one, and outside of comic books, you would ink actually to preserve the artwork. Ink is just it'll last for a longer period of time than pencil. Pencil will fade. So even if you were drawing a picture in ink or in pencil that you're just going to keep a pretty picture, you would want to ink it just so it would last longer. Comic book artists, as inkers, have a dual role that's extremely important, but the spirit of that role is preservation more than anything. That's why they say inking and embellishing, because it's more than just the preservation aspect of it when it comes to comic books. You do give it a bit of depth and light. Not a bit. I mean, there are artists out there who are tremendous, but the inker makes them legends. I think if I name names, that would be it would look like a slight no matter how I meant it, and I don't mean it as a slight. But inkers are amazing people. Like they just wow. And some of the best artists keep the same inker with them all the time, and then you see their art without that inker, and it's great, but you can tell why they would like that guy to be with them. And I feel like I don't know if you've ever heard this, but people like nurses and people who know about nursing in the medical field will tell you that nurses know typically more than the damn doctors do when it comes to certain things. But the doctor has a responsibility that they can put themselves on the line and represent the hospital. It's complicated, but nurses have to know a gang of shit, right? They have to know more about medicine sometimes, you know? And so if you think of an inker that way, where yes, the artist is great and the penciler is great and all, but it's the inker who really knows his shit about art. Like he really knows what's what and why this and so on and so forth. And so they're the ones who get the pencils after the fact and sort of make it right, you know? And that's kind of a way to look at it. I couldn't say that I know more about art than anyone. I don't know if I do or I don't think so. I don't think I do. So I don't know what that means for me doing wearing all the hats. I just want to wear all the damn hats. I do. I like the idea that I'm kind of doing this solo. Because one, with Photoshop and my magic paper, I don't have to follow the rules. I don't necessarily have to know. It seems like certain things, knowing them is a problem because it slows you down because you can't break out of the box that knowledge puts you in. So sometimes I don't really want to take more classes. I think I'd rather stumble upon some of this stuff and figure out techniques and just hope that I nailed it. Hope against hope. Okay. I think this is going to be relatively cool. I do. I still don't know what color we're going to make this guy. I don't know if I want to go with traditional Batman colors, but I don't want to get retarded either because then that would be stupid as well. So I'm not sure yet. I know I want to do the paints tonight though. To be honest, the penciling part, the drawing part takes the longest. Once you have your actual artwork, once you have the pencils done and you've told your story in that regard, now you're just making it prettier. Like the I sent a message to my old boss at Crave because I kind of wanted to see some of this stuff because he remembers when I wasn't able to do it. They were teaching me Photoshop at Crave. Because I needed to use it to do basic photo editing stuff. It was on the job training. And I thought it was so daunting at first. Because mostly I was afraid of messing up and being even more embarrassed I didn't already know how to do it. But then I went and took a Photoshop class at art school. And a lot of the stuff that he had taught me and the other people who worked at Crave taught me and some friends of mine had taught me helped me get a leg up in that class. And I'm no Photoshop master, but I know my way around the program at this point. You know. Oh, oh, I think I'm losing something. Am I not recording? Am I not live? Oh, no, I'm live, but something's going on. I might be in a high traffic area. That sucks, bros. Am I recording still? Let me look at my Twitch thing. Okay, I'm recording still. Did I drop? Two. I dropped 10 packets. Oh, yeah. I worked in VoIP for a while, and so I can read some of that crap too. Mm-mm-mm. All right, I'm gonna try and refresh my Twitch channel page and see if I've been still going this whole time. I mean, because the artwork is still going. So yeah, I guess yeah, because I can see the art on the screen looks right. Huh, who knows? But I dropped 10 packets, yeah. Oh, now the commercials on there. Geico. Okay, but yeah, this is inks. And like I said, I have the fill reduced. So I didn't want to lighten it per se. I need to be able to see what I'm doing a little bit better than that. But what I'm doing is, you're going to see in a minute, all this stuff that kind of looks like see-through, I guess. Well, it's not see-through. This is actually straight up the blackest black. This is dolomite on the screen right now in front of you. You're looking at black so black light can escape its surface. You know, I'm serious, bro. This is some serious blackness going on right here. This is the black of it black black, the black of this black. You know, so I'm gonna do it like that. I might have to get another brush out and make that right for myself. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, yeah. And okay, yes, okay. So I'm drawing. It looks like. I hope it's working. Okay, so let's see what we got. Just gonna get a little depth where we can get it. That was a happy accident. The three dimensionalness of the capsule on this belt, which is a tip of the cap to the original belt. I've always felt like Batman's belt is a super MacGuffin anyway, so it should accentuate the fact that it's physically impossible to hold all that shit. It just you should make it look even more ridiculous than even the idea is. So Batman's belt should look like I would make it look like it's like fishnet. You know, I'd make a belt that was like silly string, and all of a sudden he reaches in there and a goddamn bazooka comes out. Like I would do that shit. Like just because it's silly anyway. Have fun with it. Yeah. I wrote when I got to a website called What Culture, which is starting to do some pretty cool videos on YouTube now. Um, I think that if they're not pretty cool, they're okay. What Culture's issue was that they wanted anyone to do anything, but they wanted them all to sound like they were experts, and I have a problem with that. Like I don't know, man. Like I Yeah, they had a weird philosophy that was kind of like anti-journalistic. Like the people who ran it were writers, not journalists, and they didn't understand the difference. Anyway, um, so I wrote this article for them though that I liked. It was called Six Reasons Why Bruce Wayne Ruined Contemporary Comics. Oh, because he did. Yes, Bruce Wayne. The idea of Bruce Wayne ruins contemporary comics. I like Batman as much as the next guy, but Bruce Wayne should have long not been Batman in the regular DC continuum. Like they should have figure that out. They had many chances over the years. And the article I write goes back to all the different attempts they made to replace Bruce Wayne in the regular continuity, from Brain Thomas to uh, the more recent guys, McGinnis, the dude who was Azrael. Like, there's a bunch of dudes who have had a shot at being. Oh, I may mention that later. Batman and updating the story, allowing the characters to grow and develop where they couldn't because you had to retcon the entire universe just so Batman could be a 30-year-old dude. And I always thought that was like a shame because it's almost like DC forgot they were a publishing company and could do whatever the fuck they wanted. And I know that kind of defeats the argument because if they can do whatever the fuck they want, how come they can't do what they're doing? And I guess that makes sense. That is a reasonable response, except for why do the dumbest thing if you could do whatever you want? And what I mean by that is, okay, you hamstring your creators, your writers, your artists, your producers, your editors. You hamstring them all if they have to stop what they're doing every 5 years or so and hit the reset button so one guy can stay 35. You can't tell me that makes the most sense. Now, I wish I could find the article because I only had a chance to listen to her talk about it and read her article once. And she talks about the fact that the economy of comic books is based on the sales of Batman comics. Like that's their metric is how well Batman sells. How books to this day are stacked, and that's interesting to me. And it kind of makes sense because people don't realize comic books as a cultural phenomenon happened in the 30s and the 40s. We think that Spider-Man and Captain America and their cartoons and movies and stuff are a big deal now. We have no idea the social and cultural impact of comic books when they in their first inception. The creator of Batman, Bob Kane, who really should have given way more of the credit, like 99% of it, to a guy named Bill Finger, was literally a rock star. Oh, and I mean that in the Kanye West sense. Like, he was a rock star because he created Batman. He was able to ride that until he died, as far as fame and fortune goes. You think there's so many obligatory Stan Lee cameos? Stan Lee's level of status and notoriety is nothing compared to Bob Kane, the creator of Batman. Nothing. He just died before there was social media, before people had cameras and shit. But Bob Kane was a freaking, a rock star. And Bill Finger, the guy who actually created Batman, who actually did the work, who made Batman look the way he does, who did everything to make Batman the character people all know and love, died in anonymity and being poor. And Bob Kane wouldn't admit that he didn't really create Batman because he didn't want the meal ticket to go away. He loved the fanfare and everything else. But if Bill Finger hadn't been involved, Batman would look like Aquaman with bat wings, with a orange shirt on, a domino mask, and bat wings, and blonde hair, and blue eyes. Like, Bill Finger created everything you know about Batman from top to bottom. Bob Kane just had a decent idea on a napkin, and he's considered the sole creator of Batman, which is amazing to this day. To this day, even though he admitted on his deathbed that he didn't do it all by himself. And when I mean not all, I mean any of it. It's amazing. It kind of burns my ass every time I see a Batman movie and they stop to tell you that Bob Kane, did it, because really they're saying Bob Kane stole this idea successfully from someone else, and we have to recognize the gangster of him being a thief, not give credit to the person we now know actually created this thing that we say we love so much. It's kind of amazing. But anyway, um, Superman. I mean, it's Captain America. Superman helped the radio Superman show helped like defeat the KKK. Captain America debuted before Pearl Harbor, and America was far less hawkish before the bombing of Pearl Harbor. We were still considered what's the word I'm looking for? Isolationist, and many people didn't give a crap about Adolf Hitler and anything he was doing because it wasn't happening in our backyard. And I'm not kidding about that. And so when Captain America comes out and he's pro punch Hitler in the face, that shit did not go over well in the actual time frame. We look at it in retrospect like it was this awesome thing, but at the time, LaGuardia, the president or the mayor of New York, had to escort the creators of Captain America home because they had an angry mob outside of the comic book company talking about, what the fuck are you idiots in there doing, trying to get us into a war with Germany, like, for real. Now consider that for a second. We're talking about Captain America, and people mad because he's inciting violence against Nazi Germany. Something we think is just like this given now, at the time, was controversial. The idea of him on the cover punching Hitler in the face didn't go over like we assume it does in our weird quasi patriotic world. Like, we didn't look at it like that in the onset. War was dangerous and bad, and it didn't matter who we were going to war against. Not until after Pearl Harbor. You know, that's sort of more in keeping with. You know what? Kind of dig this. I don't know if I want to play with the cape anymore. I might. But let's see what our black looks like. Do a little bit more down here to kind of. Okay. Okay. We'll just leave that there. That might be a nice little accent. Uh, Give me some more of that. Give me some more of that lumber. There we go. Um. Anyway, I'm all over the map again. Sorry about that. But comic books were different, and in the early days, books were anthologies. The company that is now called Detective Comics wasn't called Detective Comics when it was in inception. When Batman first appears, he appears in an issue of Detective Comics. They renamed the Batman, the whole company after Detective Comics, because that's how popular Batman was. It was revolutionary. It was like nothing anyone ever seen before in terms of book sales and stuff like that. It redefined the entire marketplace, and so DC literally the comic book company formerly known as, I think, not Charleston. They had a name. It was something typical or something regular, something that wasn't that on the nose, but gave way to DC Comics, which is Detective Comics. They basically hitched their wagon to Batman, like literally. I mean, literally. It's like if the year after the Bulls drafted Michael Jordan, they changed their name to the Chicago Michael Jordans. That's kind of what the equivalent of that would be. And so now technically the DC comic universe is the Detective Comics universe. You know, that's what that means. And so everything you see in DC Comics, Detective Comics is the world of the superheroes through the lens of Batman. That's how I like to look at it. And it kind of makes sense when you consider that they stop the presses and reinvent everything to make sure he remains the center of the universe. All right, so here we go. We got some darkness here. So let's see what this darkness looks like when it's all, hey, okay. I like it. I like it a lot. I'll wait for you to check it out. I'm on a delay. Oh, there it is. Look at that. Look at that. That's some sweet blackness right there. Came out not terrible. It came out not terrible. And see, I'm always torn. I could clean up some of them excess lines, but you know what? I like them. I think it just gives it a not done on computer kind of feel that I don't want to lose. I like the idea that it looks like I drew this on paper and then scanned it. I think it does, at least. And the blemishes, the mistakes, are how I get to that conclusion. So we're gonna leave that alone. We're gonna leave it just like it is, and we're gonna color. But I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video and have a quick listen to make sure that the audio levels are right. Because chances are I'm gonna have to recut all these videos for YouTube so that you can hear them, and also I can speed up the artwork. So let's see what we got. Come back later, my one viewer, which I'm pretty sure is me. I'm gonna call you my me since you never comment or chat. You're just a really red person that says watching now. It's got to be me because I'm technically on Twitch right now. So it's got to be me. Oh well. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna turn off Twitch first, and then check and see if I still have a viewer. So there it goes. I turned off Twitch. Now, do I still have one viewer? I can't tell. How do I? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I'll never know. There's no refresh. I'll never know if I'm doing this right. Oh well. All right, one viewer. If it's really you out there viewing, I appreciate it. I'm gonna turn this bad boy off.